More about Addo daily update. So now I should make and subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and share, and for comment section. Afari Gyan and ya vindicating and I say Oma vindicating. Dr. Rashid Tanko, IT Deputy IT of Election. And like I said, this MPP or Mensa don't learn because all the elections that have been held, they all have CIs. Because you know, Mensa Omode letter about teacher president is C 2012 on the time of Afari Gyan. And like I said, those times, those Afari Gyan, the CI Afari Gyan use, now there is a provision of what recollection. There is a provision of what recollection, but CI 127 there is no provision of what recollection. There will be only recollection. Say you declare about now we are counting and we are counting. You can call for recollection, but when the quality declare, you cannot call for recollection. And what I say, the president elect, the sitting president, the chief, the elders of council should call Mensa to order. The 7 seat now were declared no. They're all calling and say they should call Mensa to order. And say it was all reversing the decision, straightforward. Because that was the declaration of the 7 seat, And say or Afari Gyan time, the CI was no, they see what the CI, and make a provision for recollection. All time it doesn't make provision for recollection. And besides, there was an injunction. Why do you go ahead to do this declaration of 7 seat? 4 was it the president led the sitting president and the elders of council? They should call Mensa to order in the name of what? To reverse the haste decision that she take. Dr. Rashid Tanko, Deputy IT of Election. God bless you.
This regime, 78 MPP. So they are just struggling to help them to show up their numbers. Otherwise, why would a returning officer make a declaration, having gone through all this procedure your presenter made here? And I read it under CI 127, Regulation 43. And I'm saying that Madam Jean Mensa wrote to us, and I will read it verbatim, that look, recollection in 2020, recollection can be done at all levels when requested before declaration. This was that before declaration of results. However, once election results have been declared, a dissatisfied party cannot request for a recollection or a recount of the results. What has changed? What has changed in Ghana? What is this?
So in the case of Obuasi East and Okaikwe Central, Tema Central, and and then also that's
Fantiakwa North.
That's Ablekuma North.
And Ablekuma North.
Those 5, even though the EC says the declarations did not follow due process, that does not find any place.
It doesn't find a place here. And I'm saying that, you see, Alfred, another mistake they are making, because when we met with our opponent, the MPP, with the IGP, they were making reference to Afari Gyan time, that recollections happened. And they were referring to prove is something happened in 2012 and all that. And I told them, you see, you people are not learning. Those elections had CIs. Under Afari Gyan, the CI that was used for the 2004 and 2012 had provision for recollection.
But this CI
doesn't have provision for recollection. You see, you cannot use those CIs to come and justify what is going on. Because every election cycle has its own CI. So this 2020 and 2024, we use one CI for it. They wanted to amend this, we prevented them. That's why they wanted to use Ghana card. As they sold this thing another time, we prevented them from amending it in Parliament. So we continue to use the same CI that was used in 2020. So the regulations that was used in 2020 is the same regulation we use for 2024. So there's no room for recollection whatsoever. They are involved in illegality. And I think I would take this opportunity to call on His Excellency Nana Addo, the President, and then the incoming president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, to call them to order.
Well, they've called on the two of them for support.
They should rather call them to order. They are involved in illegality. What they are doing is complete illegality.
They said they need protection to do.
How can they protect them to continue to do illegal things? The law is very clear about it. You know, in order not to descend into abyss, we went to court to injunct the process that their recollection they are doing was wrong. And the court is going to sit tomorrow. Why are they forcing to do it in the face of these court processes that we have?
So you've dragged the Electoral Commission to court?
We dragged them to court. And yet they are still forcing to do that thing. What is their motive? What are they trying to do?
I want us to take a listen briefly to Haruna Mohammed. He is the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. I spoke to him on Hot Edition on.
That's why you bring them together. The EC has the original copy, and then we have carbon copies. Then the EC will now come and say they don't have this, but they have samples of this in pink sheets, which are altered. In fact, they are not the original ones. There's like they have brought pink sheets to replace the original one. Ostensibly that they couldn't get them.
So the pink sheets that were brought by the EC.
The EC
is not the original.
It's not the original pink sheets.
And it's not the carbon copy.
It's not the carbon copy too.
So where did they get it from?
So that is the question. That's why some of the polling station pink sheets could not be added to this thing, because clearly the returning officers also rejected those ones and said no, these are not correct ones. We cannot add them. Because even if you look at the face of it, you get to know that somebody just manufactured them and brought them there.
So was it the same handwriting?
Different handwritings. Even the carbon copies that we have and the MPP have was different from the original. It means somebody brought some original one somewhere. Ostensibly, the person was not smart enough, because the one the NDC has and the one the MPP has collaborated each other. But the original ones were different. From the EC
was different from what MPP and NDC
had. So how will you add such a thing? It happened in Samoma Dojiri. At some of the 82 polling stations. I was there at the Tesano. When we saw that the MPP had photocopies, they didn't have carbon copies. They came with photocopies. So we asked them, where did you get photocopies? Pink sheets don't have photocopies. Ostensibly, somebody photocopies DS for them.
I see.
So this is the challenge we are facing.
So your MPP, NDC, you have a pink sheet copy. NDC had a pink sheet copy, which were having the same details in the central city.
Yes.
But the Electoral Commission
one,
sheet
a pink sheet that had different altogether. So the ones that we are going to accept these ones. That's why you had shortfalls in some of the areas.
I see.
And then we said clearly, look, even granted, if those ones were added, our candidate was still winning. It was not on the same basis Madam Gyan Mensa declared His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Out of the 276, they could gather only 267. Is that not true? It left with 9. They didn't add the 9. But they came out with a very beautiful analogy. Of course, if you add all the 9 constituencies to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, he was not still going to. So clearly, Dominic Kwabinya, they said 3 pink sheets. Those 3 pink sheets, they know the problem with those 3 pink sheets. When the issues happened, they couldn't trace them. They are now trying to use scan copy. And we say, well, accept scan copy. The law doesn't allow that. Bring scan copies.
The scan copies of
of the pink sheets that was vandalized. Otherwise, everybody will sit in his room and scan pink sheets and bring it and say, these are original scan copies.
So I see. So the declaration of Dom Kwabinya was done without the 3 polling stations.
3 polling stations. Which what they are talking of. And clearly, even if they added, our candidate was still beating them with a wide margin.
We're back shortly after this quick break. We'll round this matter up. Stay with us.
Elections in Ghana. AMBO came into force on the 6th August 2020, and it was signed by Madam Gyan Mensa. So they cannot pretend not to understand what is in the CI, because it was under her hand that the CI was passed. Now, in this CI, the one who is responsible for parliamentary election is the returning officer. The CI gave them that power. Madam Gyan Mensa is responsible for presidential election. She has no business in this CI for parliamentary election. In fact, her only duty mentioned under parliamentary election is Regulation 43. If you look at Regulation 43, 2A and B, that is where she's mentioned under parliamentary. That is when the returning officer returned the writ by filling the Form 1B to the commission. The commission, listen to what 2A says. 43.2. The commission shall, on receipt of the endorsed writ, A, publish in the Gazette a notice stating the name of the person elected and the total number of votes cast for each candidate, and inform the clerk to Parliament soon after that of the name of the candidate elected. That is the duty of the commission.
Some NDC, in fact, the NPP folks say, to the extent that the Electoral Commission has not gazetted these declarations, they can still challenge it and render it as illegal.
What we are saying is that you can challenge that through the court of competent jurisdiction. You cannot mention about recollation here. The CI has not mentioned anything about recollation.
So the recollation has no reference
It
in
has
law?
no reference in law. It has no reference. The declaration as who has become a parliamentary candidate elect rests under at regulation 43A up to H. And so if a returning officer satisfies himself with these regulations, he can go ahead and declare. And then so when he declares, he sends the writ to the commission. The commission has no power to sit down and say, we are reassessing your declaration, whether it followed due process or not. They don't have that power.
Well, their verdict is that some of their officers did these declarations under duress or without adherence to proper collation processes as enshrined in law.
Alfred, if you look at Article 99(1) of the 1992 Constitution, that power they are talking of rests in the hands of the High Court. It is the High Court that can determine whether a declaration made by a returning officer was valid or not or follow a due process. Not the electoral commission. They don't have that power. They have constituted themselves into judges. I don't know where they got those powers from. You remember in 2020, when they vandalized Techima SAF, in the midst of the vandalism, they were declaring results. People were lying down in pool of blood while declaration was going on. We challenged that and told them that, look, this declaration was illegal because proper collation was not done. So they should do recollation. Madam Mensa wrote back, I can read that part for you, to us and indicated that in terms of parliamentary election, that when declarations are made, they cannot do recollation again. But in the process of collating, you can ask for recollation before declaration. But if you don't ask for recollation and declaration so made, you cannot come back and ask for the recollation. That was her response to us.
For the Techima
in 2020. And she was saying it because of this regulation 43A to H.
But so hold on a bit for me. Let's look at the regulation 43 that you talk about. Dennis Paberi Wadam is here. Dennis, let's get into it. What does it say?
Well, so regulation 43 of CI 127, it talks about the processes that need to be adhered to in a declaration and publication of parliamentary election results. So it walks you through a procedure, and the regulation 43.1 says that immediately after the results of the poll for all the polling stations in the constituency of the returning officer have been given to the returning officer shall, in the presence of the candidates or the representatives of the candidates, or not more than 2 counting agents appointed by each candidate, A, assemble the results from the polling stations without recounting.
So without
recounting the ballots in the ballot boxes, except where there is a challenge by a candidate or a counting agent in respect of a specific ballot box. So let's put on record that even the issue of recounting itself is an exception to the law, because the law by its default say that there should not be recounting except where there's a challenge. And this challenge must come from specific people. What it means is, again, is that the EC sole moto cannot recount.
It cannot recollect, or we can replace the recounting to recollect. Okay.
So counting itself, yes, count, no recounting, except where there's a challenge from agents or the candidates or their representatives. It continues. Now, after that is done, fill the parliamentary election results summary sheet as set out in Form 1D of the schedule. C, give public notice of the total number of votes cast for each candidate. D, publicly declare as elected in the parliamentary election the candidate who had the highest votes.
And those are the videos we've been seeing.
Now the process continues. After this, there's a request for the candidates or the representatives and counting agents of the agent together with the returning officers to sign a certain document, and it continues. The point has to be made. It goes all the way to a point where there's an endorsement of the rate specified in Form 1B of the schedule, the name of the person elected. Mind you, this is the person who has been declared.
Yes.
Forward to the commission the endorsed rates and the notes of the total number of votes cast for each of the candidates. It goes on to say that now the commission shall, on receipt of this endorsed rates, publish in the Gazette a notice stating the name of the person elected and the total number of votes cast for each candidate. And then subsequently, inform the clerk to Parliament soon after that of the name of the candidate elected.
I see.
So this is what Regulation 43 of CI 127 spells out by way of declaration and publication of parliamentary election results.
So there's really no room for the recollection as the Electoral Commission.
We don't find it here.
I see. So, but the commission and the commissioner they were quite clear in their words, and they've been consistent. In fact, Dr. Tanko, last week Friday, they addressed the media, and it's more like a reproduction of what they said last Friday, what we heard from the EC chair today, to the extent that these declarations were done under certain circumstances, it invalidates the results. Are you saying that regardless of the circumstance under these declarations were made, the results stand, they're intact?
Look, it doesn't lie in their mouth to determine a situation of that nature. They don't have that power. The power to determine whether a declaration was made under duress or not lies with the High Court, not the Commission. You see, that's the mistake we are making.
Right.
Otherwise, we are descending to an abyss where we also raise issue of declaration in certain constituencies in Ashanti region and said they were made under duress. That's why we lost them. Is that what we're going to do? Because some people lost, it's becoming difficult for them to accept. And that because you see, they had only 78 seats. That's the most miserable thing they've ever seen in their life under this regime.
I was a daily update soon. I will share, and then I will share na a pacho and it you kwaso. I'm sure let's subscribe to my YouTube channel, no. Like and share, if I comment in so a share comment section. Yes, row any deal must have back in kind into the member BBA how. Yen enjoy Mensa a mistake in this recoalition because the CI of Afari makes rooms for what recoalition, but CI 127 doesn't support that. Intim Dr. Rashid Tango Chese, Mensa Entiminga said President she was a year Afarijan time soon, and no enna ye looking on for this one because Ochese a year CI no, and no time no they make room for recoalition, but this one doesn't make room for recoalition. And the Mensa have what everything. Bidu be see and I'm saying some no edos or ya pulu suntino. Eba kwa fancy and for Eddie Abawa Ababeson.